Stanford president Drew Faust recently spoke to Emily Chang on Bloomberg Studio 1.0 about, well, how technology can help bring down the cost of higher education.
This is such a great and important question, and one that we've all struggled with because we compete based on the experience we can offer students, the resources we can offer faculty for their research and teaching. We don't compete on cost. And so the way higher education is organized financially, there is not that sense of pressure to bring down cost. We have brought down price by funding financial aid so significantly, so that at Harvard, in the college, any student who comes from a family that makes less than $65,000 a year has to offer no parental family contribution towards tuition, room and board, so that it's very accessible in terms of what it costs the students, but in terms of the price for the students, but in terms of the cost of what we do, that is something we need to get under control and address more fully. Technology is going to help with that. What can we do online to supplement or replace certain parts of instruction so that we can leave to people the parts that we absolutely need people for and streamline some of the other parts? I think we'll see some of that coming forward. But constraining cost is going to be a real challenge for all of higher education.
There are a lot of companies trying to disrupt higher education, and some say that a Harvard degree won't matter by the time my children go to college. How do you respond to that? Like, how does Harvard stay the best, the gold standard?
We have to make sure we attract the best talent, and that's why affordability is so important. I also believe that the experience, and you've had this experience, so maybe you can testify to it, the experience of being in that community, living in that community with other students from whom you learn probably as much as you learn in any class you take, that is the core of what a Harvard education really is. So that at its best, the residential dimensions of Harvard education are essential to the full experience of what it can be. And that is not going to be disrupted by a simply online experience. You can learn a lot from an online experience, but what you're learning is about the subject matter of the online experience. You're not bumping into somebody in a corridor and finding that they challenge you in ways that you never expected, or that the ways they're different from you expand your understanding of the world. That is such an important part of what happens both in and outside our classrooms.
There's a sense here from the heart of Silicon Valley that Stanford has surpassed Harvard, especially when it comes to technology and becoming a feeder for the biggest and most powerful companies in the world. Is that a fair assessment?
Of course not. Of course not. We are different institutions, and I think that's a great strength of American higher education, is that there are different emphases and different opportunities that institutions like Stanford and Harvard can offer. I don't want to sit and, have a Stanford-Harvard competition here in front of you and say, oh, we're so good at this. We have a growing presence in technology and in fields of engineering. Our students concentrating in engineering have tripled in the last 10 years, so that's an area I think we're paying more attention than we did a decade or 2 decades ago. But we also have such deep-seated strengths in life sciences, in the humanities, in the arts, and such a commitment in social sciences and the endeavors that are not simply involved in technology. And we compete very successfully with Stanford for students and for faculty. And so we're very pleased to be Harvard, and we expect to remain Harvard.
What is Harvard doing differently to train the worker for tomorrow?
Differently from?
It's traditionally like a liberal arts education. Mm-hmm. Do you think Harvard needs to do anything differently to arm workers with the skills necessary to succeed in a modern economy?
Well, there have been some changes in how we approach education over the past decade that respond in part to what you're saying, which is we find our curriculum much more oriented and our students much more eager for hands-on experience in a variety of ways. Engineering is obviously a discipline that has a lot of hands-on dimensions. Our students are also very interested in making in the arts and the creativity and innovation that are part of making things and as you learn. We also see students much more involved in wanting to solve problems and to have an effect on the world. And so there tends to be many more internships or public service opportunities tied into curricular offerings. Doing and thinking are intertwined much more closely. It used to be you thought in college and then you did when you left. Now those things intersect and interact with one another, and that seems to me an extraordinarily important part of readying students to take on the challenges that they're so eager to embrace.